Jaya Kopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Kopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Kopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayan Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajkacharya Stotra Sat Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayan Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajkacharya Stotra Sat Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nandikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 26, text number 18. Antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa bahiḥ samanvety eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa bahiḥ samanvety eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa bahiḥ samanvety eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā. antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa, kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ, samanvety eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ, bhagavān ātma-māyayā, antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa, samanvety eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ, bhagavān ātma-māyayā. Vaishnavis. Antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa, kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ, samanvety eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ, bhagavān ātma-māyayā. Antaḥ, within. Puruṣa-rūpeṇa, in the form of Supersoul. Kāla-rūpeṇa, in the form of time. Ya, he who. Bahiḥ, without. Samanvety, exists. eṣaḥ, he. Sattvānāṁ, of all living entities. Bhagavān, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. ātma-māyayā, by his potencies. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. By exhibiting his potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping himself within as the Supersoul and without as time. Purport. Here it is stated that within the heart, the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides as the Supersoul. This situation is also explained in Bhagavad-gītā. The Supersoul rests beside the individual soul and acts as a witness. This is also confirmed elsewhere in the Vedic literature. Two birds are sitting on the same tree of the body. One is witnessing, and the other is eating the fruits of the tree. This Purusha, or Paramātmā, who resides within the body of the individual soul, is described in Bhagavad-gītā as the upadraṣṭā, witness, and anumantā, sanctioning authority. The conditioned soul engages in the happiness and distress of the particular body given him by the arrangement of the external energy of the Supreme Lord. But the Supreme Living Being, or the Paramātmā, is different from the conditioned soul. He is described in Bhagavad-gītā as maheśvara, or the Supreme Lord. He is Paramātmā, not jīvātmā. Paramātmā means the Supersoul, who is sitting beside the conditioned soul just to sanction his activities. The conditioned soul comes to this material world in order to lord it over material nature. Since one cannot do anything without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, he lives with the jīva soul as witness and sanction-giver. He is also bhoktā. He gives maintenance and sustenance to the conditioned soul. Since the living entity is constitutionally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is very affectionate toward the living entities. Unfortunately, when the living entity is bewildered or illusioned by the external energy, he becomes forgetful of his eternal relationship with the Lord. But as soon as he becomes aware of his constitutional position, he is liberated. The minute independence of the conditioned soul is exhibited by his marginal position. If he likes, he can forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead and come into the material existence with a false ego to lord it over material nature. But if he likes, he can turn his face to the service of the Lord. The individual living entity is given that independence. His conditional life is ended, and his life becomes successful as soon as he turns his face to the Lord. But by misusing his independence, he enters into material existence. Yet the Lord is so kind that, as Supersoul, He always remains with the conditioned soul. The concern of the Lord is neither to enjoy nor to suffer from the material body. He remains with the jīva simply as sanction-giver and witness, so that the living entity can receive the results of his activities, good or bad. Outside the body of the conditioned soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as the time factor. According to the Sankhya system of philosophy, there are 25 elements. The 24 elements already described plus the time factor make 25. According to some learned philosophers, the Supersoul is included to make a total of 26 elements.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sadguru Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarveshya Kripa Sindhvainacha Patita So, in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, is spoken by Kapila, his incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And he's teaching his mother, Devahuti, about time. And here it is described that Supreme Lord inside is Supersoul. He manifests as Supersoul in everyone's heart. And outside, he manifests as time. When we say time, it sounds a little impersonal and all-powerful energy which moves everything. But it is also manifestation of the Lord. As we know, time, Supreme Lord in the form of time, destroys everything over time. But also he maintains, creates, as Srila Prabhupada says here in the purport, that Supersoul is a well-wishing. He is our well-wisher. So all these contradictions are kind of finding balance in the amazing and unfathomable power of the Supreme Lord. So, Krishna in Bhagavad-gītā, he, in several places, he talks about himself as time, especially in 10th chapter, 33rd verse, aham eṣaḥ kālo. Krishna says he is the eternal, inexhaustible time. In 11th chapter, famous verse, Kalasmi Lokakshayakrit. Krishna says, I'm Lokakshayakrit means I have come here to destroy everything. So, living entity, even if it enjoys or decides to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord, is always at the mercy of the Supreme Lord. It's always controlled. It's never out of control of the Supreme Lord. Of course, living entity has free will, but living entity manifests free will by the mercy of the Supreme Lord within the facilities which are given by the Supreme Lord. Just like everyone is governed by the government. So, citizens, law-abiding citizens, they are governed by a civil department. And there's also criminal department. And both departments are just two aspects of government. So, Krishna is, in any case, controller, and living entity is trying to struggle against the control of the Supreme Lord. That's how living entities is entangled in material world. Existence of living entities and pretty much everything that is created, it's going through phases, as we said, creation, maintenance, destruction. And in our scriptures, life of planets, life of living entities are compared to the wheel, just like there's samsara chakra, or the wheel of samsara, repeated birth and death. So there's also Kala chakra. Kala chakra is inevitable time, which works in a certain way, and just like there is that famous verse from Brahma Samhita 5:52. It says that the sun is running on its orbit by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. So all planets, they are running in circles. Everything is going on in circles. Nature is going on in circles. And these are all arrangement of the Supreme. Also, living entities are going in circles. They take birth, they start their life, and we can see that their life is full of rituals, daily activities which repeat. A lot of our activities are kind of quite predictable. So we can consider our life also a circle. Different living entities, they have different circles. For example, Brahma, as the most qualified living entity in the universe, his circle is big. He lives for many billions of years. But still, he is also destined to die, end his life, and continue further. So, some smaller living entities like humans or animals, plants, they live much shorter. But they are also on their own orbit. So this aspect of time, because of forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord, living entity is in fear of time. Everyone is pushed by this fear to secure, to obtain, to maintain. That's why spiritual life is ultimately the best method for becoming free of fear. Because Krishna, as the well-wishing friend, eṣaḥ sarva-bhūtānaṁ hritne Arjuna tishtati. Krishna is suhridam sarva-dehinam. He is a well-wisher, and his mercy or his well-wishing nature manifests mostly through his devotees. So this is how Krishna is active in this world. Of course, there are incarnations of the Lord which come repeatedly through different ages, but Lord's devotees are there are innumerable number of Lord's devotees, and they are also bent to work for the benefit of living entities. They are also well-wishing friends. That's why the Supreme Lord is very fond of devotees, and devotees are very much fond of the Supreme Lord. Once Lord Chaitanya, after returning from Gaya, where he met his spiritual master, after returning from Gaya, he manifested his spiritual power and strong devotional ecstasies. So at that time he was teaching, he had his own school, although he was very young. But when he returned, he started explaining everything in connection to Krishna, even grammatical rules of Sanskrit and logic. So that was very unusual at that time. So once Lord Chaitanya came back from his school, and then he was teaching his mother in the mood of Lord Kapila-dev. These discussions are about Lord Kapila-dev, who is teaching his mother, so also Lord Chaitanya, as the supreme philosopher and teacher, he was also manifesting that nature, those pastimes. So Lord Chaitanya said that Lord's devotees and Krishna's, which means Krishna's servants, he said devotees are never destroyed. Even the wheel of time is frightened by the sight of Krishna's devotees. So this is very interesting. So everyone is afraid of eternal time, and even in the scriptures there are verses which describe that sun goes on its orbit and shines out of fear of the Supreme Lord. Wind is blowing out of fear of the Supreme Lord. Everything is acting because of its obedience to the Supreme Lord. But Lord's devotees are not just run by fear of the Supreme Lord. They like to serve, they like to please, cooperate with Krishna, and in this way they become transcendental to material influences. That's a very interesting topic. Can we say that time is afraid of Aishwarya Keshava? That's what Lord Chaitanya said. Time personified is, very careful with devotees. So, if that's the case, then how is it that devotees are also going through difficulties? They are going to sometimes through fear and challenges. How to understand this statement? At least, probably there are many examples of devotees being fearless, and there are also many examples in which Krishna, as the Supreme Person, Bhagavān, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was afraid of his devotees. But very soon, Kartik month is starting, and actually we are worshipping Krishna, who is afraid of Mother Yashoda. So his mother, of course we know Supreme Lord is Aham Sarvasya Prabhu, everything comes from him. He's the father and mother of everyone. But the Supreme Lord is bound by devotion and service of his devotees. In this case, it's Mother Yashoda. So Krishna, that's interesting pastime in which Krishna feels fear of Mother Yashoda. He's really afraid. Krishna broke the pot with yogurt or butter, and he ran away in fear because he was afraid of his mother Yashoda. Although he's supreme controller, he acts as ordinary child, under the influence of his devotee. And he's not just faking it. So that's really kind of unfathomable nature of Krishna. So Krishna, the Supreme Time, is at least afraid of Mother Yashoda or liberated devotees. Time also is connected, or they usually see it in connection of, as we said, destroying or taking out everything, dissolving everything, restoring it afterwards. So, passage of time, it's connected to suffering. Everyone knows, as we grow old, our bodies are not functioning anymore as before. There are more difficulties just to maintain the body in shape. So, influence of time and suffering, we can see that devotees go through a lot of similar things like everyone else. So how is it that devotees are beyond suffering, beyond the influence of time? Once there was one Indian guest who visited Prabhupada, and he asked Prabhupada, how is it that Pandavas, Arjuna, Yudhishthira, and the rest of them, how is it that they were suffering so much? Which is described in Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada said, actually, devotee never suffers. Devotees are, Pandavas didn't suffer. They were simply executing the will of the Lord. So this is very interesting, because in this world, as Krishna said in Bhagavad-gītā, dukkhalayam ashashvatam, there's always some trouble. There are always troubles, but devotees don't give much importance to those troubles. They are simply interested in how to execute the will of the Lord. Which means that pain we cannot avoid, but mental agony we can avoid by becoming devotees and serving Krishna. Which means we have some higher purpose. We want to actually satisfy spiritual master and Krishna and do something nice for spreading Krishna's glories. So this is life of devotee, and devotees, there are many examples in history and in modern times how devotees went through a lot of difficulties, but they were simply executing the will of the Lord. And that's the best position, to be free from the influence of time and destruction, which is inevitable in this world. Now we can see that these tornadoes and hurricanes are destroying around the country. And we can also understand, yes, this is also, in one sense, Krishna's arrangement. it looks terrifying, but how to understand this suffering and innocent victims. We have no better explanation than just accepting it as the supreme will. Of course, in our scriptures, we also learn about karma, influence of sinful activities to suffering, because when human beings engage in sinful, selfish enjoyment, they bring about even more suffering than it is there, in form of birth, old age, disease and death. So even suffering through birth, old age, disease and death, it is also arrangement. This is how, especially living entities in the human form of life, they'll start to question, why is this happening? How is that is totally out of our control? Everyone wants to reduce suffering and increase happiness. And these things are going on its own accord. That's how it looks like. Mantras bhashastu kanteya. Krishna explains in Gita that they are coming and going as winter and summer, heat and cold. Yeah. So suffering is a great impotence for humanity. That's how humanity wants to develop and find solution. Ultimately, best solution is Krishna consciousness, because we understand that we are not this body, that we are eternal, and that soul cannot be destroyed. Not only that soul cannot be destroyed, but also spiritual achievements in form of Krishna consciousness are also indestructible. They stay with us, and this consciousness they will carry on to our next life, and ultimately to the supreme destination, spiritual world. Okay, I would like to stop here, and if there is any question, please ask.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. On this point of time, we know that you were talking about how devotees are free from the effects of time. And we also know that Krishna and his abode are free from the effects of time. It said in the spiritual world, time is conspicuous by its absence. So when we see Krishna in, say, his Dham appearing here in the material world, or his Archa-vigraha form, we still may see what looks like the display of time, like in Vrindavan. Time has appeared to have affected Vrindavan over thousands of years. So how do we understand this?
So, your question is, we can see that things are pretty much everything here is under influence of time. Even holy places, probably you wanted to say deities also, because at one point there's ultimate dissolution of the universe, also described in scriptures. If we understand that we are not this body, that's what we really are. So, in this way, then body is destroyed over time. It's something like Krishna is peeling us off from everything that we are not. It's not only physical body, but also subtle body with concepts, ideas, material ideas and attachments. So, essence or spirit remains indestructible. Once indestructible. Once somebody comes to the level of practicing devotional service, such persons are consciously or unconsciously already on the path of liberation. They are practically, their position, their future is indestructible. Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na shochati na kakshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. So, being established in the understanding that we are not this body, one becomes very joyful, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. One doesn't hanker or lament for anything in this world. So things come and go in this world, and devotee is not disturbed with this. Sama Sarashu, he sees equally all living entities, mad bhaktim labate param. So if somebody has become free from material attachments and misconceptions, to the effect that he is actually taking up Krishna consciousness, taking the active practice of Krishna consciousness, we can understand that he is quite a lot self-realized, or understands, I'm not this body, I have to do something for eternity. So, of course, material scene, which is arranged by the combination of spirit and matter in material world, is temporary. It lasts for some time. But the concepts of devotional service, concept of archa vigraha is eternal. It's always there. We can see Srimad Bhagavatam describes even in previous millenniums or days, probably lives of Brahma, different things are described. So it's eternal. Krishna is eternally present everywhere. It's not that by destruction of a deity, or we can say physical form, Krishna manifests as physical form in order to facilitate our advancement in Krishna consciousness, but actually Krishna is in everything. He's also in that form. Krishna is within every atom, so it's not that Krishna is hurt or destroyed, because that's his own arrangement. Krishna is not hurt. He is simply continuing his transcendental existence. And due course of time, Krishna manifests in the form of deity in the future, in order to spread God consciousness. Yeah. So Krishna is all-powerful. Sanatana Goswami, in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he also says that a person can worship a blade of grass if he actually understands that within blade of grass is the Supersoul present. So, not to speak of deity, which actually is even more manifested form. Yeah. Is that okay? Thank you. Śrīmad Bhagavatam ki, Śrīla Prabhupada ki.